So, Donald finally emerged from whatever cave he was hiding in over the last few days, and he's exactly the same. I know, shocking. He came out to make some big announcements that turned out to be meaningless, uh, really. But in the midst of it all, he managed to threaten yet another blue state, Colorado this time. We'll get to that in a minute.
When your fiercest critic comes from your own bloodline, the impact cuts deeper than any headline ever could. Donald Trump has battled opponents in politics, in media, in comedy clubs, even in courts, but when Mary Trump speaks, the wreckage is personal. She doesn't deal in gossip, she doesn't rely on headlines, she brings the receipts of lived experience. Mary doesn't roast her uncle the way comedians do, she dismantles him layer by layer, like someone who has seen the cracks forming long before the skyscraper collapsed. Her words don't just sting, they implode the mythology Donald built around himself, the golden name, the untouchable empire, the image of success. She shows it all for what it really is: smoke and mirrors.
Okay, obviously the big story of the week, although there are many other big stories we shouldn't ignore, but is this Epstein stuff, right?
Yeah.
It appears your Uncle Donald is kind of having a baby over this. He is starting to criticize his supporters. He's angry that many parts of MAGA seem quite fixated on this. I would just love to hear your reaction to the whole damn thing.
Yeah, well, the whole damn thing is fascinating, quite frankly, for many reasons. But let's start with what, I don't know if it's the most obvious one, but it's the most obvious one to me. Donald is somebody who has lived his entire life with complete impunity. Like, he's been able to get away with everything. And he thinks it's because he's a genius, right? He thinks it's because he's so all-powerful.
Not all critics are created equal. Some throw stones from a distance, but Mary Trump fires shots from point-blank range. Figures like George Conway or Rosie O'Donnell can mock Donald from the outside. Mary grew up inside the storm, watching the chaos long before the world caught on. She knows the origins of the insecurity, the childhood cracks in the armor, the ego that ballooned so out of control it now hovers over politics like a giant parade float. Her roast doesn't rely on cheap insults, it slices deep. Because it's informed, Mary doesn't just mock the hairstyle or the tweets, she pulls back the curtain to expose the wiring underneath, the fragile machinery powering the bluster, and once she lays it bare, the performance looks less like power and more like desperation.
That he can manipulate people to do whatever he wants them to do. But the truth of the matter is, it's because he's been enabled his whole life by people like my grandfather and others. And now, most recently, of course, it's been the Republican Party and, of course, his followers. What he doesn't understand is that he can't turn off the switch. Now, I understand why he would think that, because, again, he has gotten away with everything, pretty much.
Mary starts where it all began: Trump's obsession with image. She explains that Donald never cared about achieving excellence, he only cared about projecting it. His life wasn't built on substance but surface. He was the child who measured success not in results but in appearances. That's why everything Trump touches screams branding: Trump steaks, Trump water, Trump University products, where the gold lettering was always more valuable than what was inside. To Mary, this is the ultimate reveal. Donald Trump is not a leader, not even a businessman in the true sense. He's a marketing gimmick in human form, a logo wearing a suit, desperate to be seen as bigger than the man he actually is.
Or at least should be a major setback for Donald's ongoing plan to take over any cities that don't abide by his rules or agree with him or support him. But here's the problem, and this is something we've come up against time and time again. Courts take time to render their judgment.
For years, critics have mocked Trump's thin skin, but Mary does more than mock. She explains it. She describes him as a man who equates cruelty with strength because he never learned how to deal with weakness. To Donald, empathy looks like failure, kindness looks like vulnerability, so instead of processing fear, he weaponizes it. He lashes out at comedians, ridicules opponents, rages at critics, not to show dominance, but to hide fragility. Every insult is a shield, every tantrum is armor. Mary makes it clear. Behind the shouting, behind the mocking, behind the Twitter rants, is still the boy terrified of being laughed at. His cruelty isn't strength, it's panic in disguise.
So it seems that this is the pattern. A blue state is already on the enemies list because blue states don't support Donald Trump. They don't vote for him. We hate his policies and we hate him. But sometimes it's a new thing that draws his ire, or I should probably say, becomes a handy excuse for his increasingly fascistic and hostile behavior towards blue cities and blue states.
Winning for Donald Trump, it's not just a word, it's an addiction. Mary skewers the way he inflates every victory beyond recognition while erasing or denying every failure. He boasts of being a self-made man, all while sitting atop the fortune his father handed him. He claims business genius while leaving a graveyard of bankruptcies behind. Mary paints him not as a mogul but as the kid at Monopoly who cheats, flips the board when he loses, and then insists everyone still call him the champion. His obsession with winning isn't about achievement, it's about hiding failure, and in that desperate cover-up, the real joke writes itself.
Sudden, there's nothing to see or hear, move along. It isn't going to fly, and it is kind of fascinating that is this issue. But I think he does not know how to process it at all, because unbelievably, for those of us who believe in accountability and who believe he's done horrible things for decades now, he cannot process the fact that he doesn't control this.
Mary exposes another truth: Trump's desperate hunger for validation. She describes him as a man who treats applause like oxygen, who needs every rally as a fix, every cheer as proof of existence. Governing isn't his focus, performing is. She argues that his rallies aren't about policy, they're about therapy. He's not leading a nation, he's soothing an unfillable void. And then comes the lying. Trump doesn't lie because he has to, he lies because it's the only language he knows. Even when the truth would work, he twists it anyway. Mary compares it to a magician who keeps pulling scarves from his sleeve long after the audience has stopped clapping. The performance doesn't impress, it exposes the compulsive emptiness.
Colorado got singled out because it has mail-in voting. Illinois has been singled out because Governor J.B. Pritzker has been very vocal about Donald and his fascism. New York has been singled out, well, because it's New York, and we've known for decades exactly who this pathetic moron is.
Mary sharpens the roast when she highlights Trump's cruelty in his family. Survival meant being ruthless, and he never outgrew that lesson. Instead of evolving, he calcified. To him, strength means humiliating others. That's why his leadership style isn't really leadership at all, it's insults, mockery, and division. But Mary flips the joke back on him. True strength isn't noise, it's restraint, patience, empathy, all qualities Donald never mastered. She then dismantles his favorite narrative, the self-made warrior. In reality, his record is a graveyard of failures: bankrupt casinos, failed products, endless contradictions, unhinged tweets. Mary doesn't even need to exaggerate, she simply sets the facts side by side and the comedy writes itself.
Do you think that his lashing out at his supporters is just a sign of his inability to comprehend this pushback, and that's why he's kind of lashing out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's also, it's insecurity, right? It's his understanding on some level.
Some roasts exaggerate for laughs. Mary doesn't have to. She lines up the facts and lets the absurdity shine. Donald Trump, the only man who could bankrupt a casino, the only president who measures success by television ratings, the only leader who turns press briefings into bad stand-up routines. Then she digs into his obsession with loyalty. He demands it from everyone yet offers it to no one. His loyalty is never mutual, it's servitude. Mary paints him as a man who mistakes sycophants for friends, surrounding himself with flatterers until he lives inside an echo chamber where applause drowns out reality. And when she's done, the final irony becomes clear: Trump's legacy isn't monumental, it's meme-worthy, a punchline destined to outlive his presidency.
Afraid of is being found out, to be to have people understand that everything about him that's projected publicly is based on a myth, that he's literally nothing of who he claims to be. He's nothing other people have purported him to be, starting with my grandfather, who's the man responsible for having created this myth.
Mary's roast lands hardest because it mixes humor with tragedy. She doesn't just mock Trump as a public figure, she reveals him as a family member, man shaped by desperation more than destiny. Critics often portray Trump as a monster. Mary shows him as something more pitiful, a man terrified of being ordinary. His cruelty, dishonesty, and insecurity all stem from the same place: fear of insignificance, fear of irrelevance. By the time she's done, the golden image collapses. The emperor isn't just unclothed. He's revealed as a frightened child, still chasing the approval of a father who never gave it. Mary doesn't just roast Donald, she annihilates the myth he built around himself, and she barely has to lift a finger to do it.
So that was the impetus behind my working with the New York Times in 2017. In 2018, I handed over about 40,000 pages of documents that helped them put together a story that revealed the lie behind, Donald's claim that he was a successful, self-made businessman. When in fact, my grandfather, over the course of Donald's lifetime, gave him like $410 million. Like, even I could probably be successful.
Yeah, but he screwed it up.
I'm pretty sure a potato could be successful with $410 million.
But Donald wasn't. So there you go.
Mary doesn't spare Trump's treatment of women either. She paints him as a man desperate for admiration while offering nothing but disrespect in return to her. It isn't just misogyny, it's insecurity dressed up as dominance. She exposes his obsession with surrounding himself with beauty, not because he values women, but because he believes their reflection hides his flaws. He collects admiration like trophies, yet discards people the moment they're no longer useful. Mary likens his loyalty to a vending machine. Insert praise and devotion and you're rewarded, hesitate and you're thrown away. This isn't power, it's cowardice wrapped in bravado.
Well, let's stop saying we and us, okay? It's them. It's these power-hungry murderers who care no more about our actual living, beautiful, wondrous children than they do about the goddamn clump of cells they pretend to revere. And it is we, those of us who value life, who would do anything to keep our children safe and create a world in which they can thrive and even survive until adulthood, who need to hang these murders around the Republicans' necks and let the blood of our children, who are dead as a direct result of their willful inaction, stain them forever.
Trump dreams of legacy, but Mary demolishes it. He talks about his presidency as though he belongs beside the founding fathers. The reality, his legacy is not emancipation or recovery, it's lawsuits, Twitter feuds, and late-night rants that read like drunken texts. Mary mocks the disconnect between fantasy and fact. Only Trump could sit in the Oval Office and still behave like a teenager in a cafeteria, counting retweets as proof of influence. She then tears apart the self-made billionaire myth. Donald never built, he borrowed, he never created, he inherited. The fairy tale of the self-made man, Mary insists, is the biggest lie he ever sold and the easiest to disprove.
In the meantime, Donald and the Trump regime keep taking more and more liberties with our constitutional rights. By the time the courts ruled, a lot of damage has already been done. Whether or not it can be reversed kind of remains to be seen. And here's the other thing. We have ample evidence that Donald and the DOJ is not necessarily going to comply with the judge's orders anyway.
Finally, Mary turns to Trump's strangest relationship of all, his relationship with truth. To him, truth isn't reality, it's clay, something to bend, break, or discard depending on the crowd. Lies aren't accidents, they're strategies. Mary mocks how supporters accept them like gospel even as fact-checkers drown in the avalanche. But she goes deeper. Trump doesn't lie because it's useful, he lies because it's the only language he knows. Truth is foreign. Lies are home, and the tragedy, the pile has grown so high even Donald can't keep track anymore. Behind every insult, every defensive tweet, every furious denial, Mary sees the same thing: fear, the mask slipping, the fragile boy beneath still yelling at the dark, hoping no one notices the shake in his voice. He calls it strength, Mary calls it survival theater, and by the end, Donald Trump is no longer the towering figure of his own myths, the fragile performance unraveling in real time as the world laughs not with him, but at him.